have a very, very important question for you.
Okay.
One, do you remember the Canadian national anthem? And do you remember, I don't know, because I had to sing it in French. And
I
do you
think
remember the French version?
I can, and it's funny because I was just going over this in my head because I was asking myself the same thing. I've not sung the Canadian national anthem or any national anthem in a really long time.
You are watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. My name is TK Trinidad, and today we have an amazing show with, of course, nothing but an amazing guest. She's a Canadian sensation, former Total Diva star, interviewer, and producer for AEW. Please welcome Renee Paquette. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. I'm excited to be on here with you. Always love meeting a fellow Canadian.
I feel like it was so funny when I got back into like the wrestling media space. It was just like, wait, there's a lot. I cover particularly like women's wrestling. It's just like, wait, there's a lot of Canadian women wrestlers like all over the place.
There's a lot of just like Canadians in wrestling in general. I mean, there's no shortage of it. I love it.
There is, and it's funny because for me, my story in wrestling is I grew up with my dad. Every Sunday we would watch wrestling, WWE on Sundays. Like that was our thing. I don't know if it's because there wasn't really much on TV or it was just to keep my brother and I out of my mom's hair. I don't know what the reasoning was, but as far as like wrestling, other than that, we didn't really go to shows or any of that stuff. So as far as your journey in wrestling, like what was that moment where you were like, oh, I love this. This is amazing.
You know, I think for me, like, so I grew up watching it a bit, like I was like such a tomboy. All my guy friends were into it. So everyone was like, you know, pretending to be like The Undertaker and Kane and like tombstoning each other. Don't do this at home. So I grew up watching it in that regard, but I also like played a ton of sports. So that actually took up a ton of my time. So when I was like busy doing that, then kind of started gravitating a little bit more to the entertainment side of things. I wanted to act. I was doing, you know, a bunch of different auditions, stuff in that vein. And then once wrestling kind of landed back in my lap, I was working for The Score, which is of course, a Canadian broadcasting sports channel, formerly, now under Rogers anyways. But anyways, when I started working there, and my boss, Greg Sansoni at the time, he asked me to host an after show for Monday Night Raw. And that's when I like really delved back into the world of pro wrestling and all the time that I had spent playing sports, now working for a sports network, but having this itch to perform and that acting side of things. I think once I realized those worlds colliding and how perfect it was for me to land in the pro wrestling space, I just feel like everything clicked.
Yeah. The sports aspect, that's what I really do love about it, where it's like very, it's like that sports entertainment.
Yeah.
Like, I remember like the first time, same thing, like I played a lot of sports in college. And then I remember when I watched it for the first time in person and Xavier Woods jumped off the top rope and did like this flip. I was like, first off, how did he not kill himself? How did he do it with so many people watching and then not kill the person? Like it just, I was just like hooked.
I will always remember the first time that I went to my like working for WWE, and I went to my first day at like on the road, and it was a show in Atlanta. And that was my first time really being in the belly of the beast and seeing how production works on a pro wrestling show. And my mind was like, whoa, like not only had I already been covering pro wrestling on like the broadcast side of things, doing an after show and just, you know, knowing all the ins and outs of all the stories and whatnot, but to like see how the shows come together and how the matches are coming together and the promos are coming together and the segments are switching and changing, and to see that all happening in real time gave me such respect, like more than I already had for all of these athletes that go out there and can put on these 20-minute matches, then step in the ring with somebody like me and do this like really great promo to you know, promote to whatever, you know, another pay-per-view that's coming up, another match, whatever it may be. That's always still so impressive to me. Someone's trying to like catch their breath from what they've just been doing and then go into like the business side of things. That it's just always so impressive to me.
Yeah, I often say that it's the fact that we do this, we do this every day in, day out. Like there's nonstop. Because I had this conversation, we were talking about should wrestling be in seasons, and like for all the complaining that the Twitterverse does as far as wrestling. It's like you still have to put respect on the fact that these people come out like it's hard work to travel to do all the things. It's just
like the wrestling side, even taken out of it, being on the road as often as we are, and like, luckily my husband and I get to travel together, but there's people that are away from their families. There's people that, we've got dreams that we're chasing, and it's like trying to accommodate all of these things. But then of course, you add in the physicality aspect of all that and having matches week in, week out, day in, day out. I mean, that toll obviously adds up. Sometimes people are able to take a little bit of time off, but I mean, as we see, it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes we're just going.
Yeah. And then, like some days you don't feel like it. Like, it's not like your job, like you work at a desk and you're like, I don't feel like it today.
I'm going to check out a little bit today, phone it in. Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah, that's when injuries happen.
I've been able to spend a lot of time around many different types of athletes, and I'm still always blown away by the work ethic and just like the athleticism of what these guys and girls bring to work every day that it happens. Like it is really impressive. Like you said, there's no seasons, don't get that break. So to just kind of keep going, nose to the grindstone is it's amazing.
It is. And something that is amazing to me that you've been able to do with AEW, you have not one but two contracts, talent and producing. We already know talent wise that's in the bag, but with the producing aspect, entertainment wise, producing means, the title producer means so many different things. Sure. So as far as producing for AEW, what does that entail, and what projects do you want to eventually do?
The main thing that I focus on, that I have the most experience in, of course, is those backstage segments, doing those interviews, different promos. For me, it's kind of jumping in there. It's such a different experience than it is with WWE, where of course I was not a producer there, but the experience that I had there of being able to work with everybody. I've done interviews with everybody. So for me to be able to have that experience, and now to be able to apply it here, where we're not just handed a script and we're not handed the, like, here's what we're getting to. So really it's, getting together with the talent. And sometimes it's right before we're about to shoot something, going, what are we doing? What are we trying to accomplish? And just like, it's really just keeping everybody on track and making sure that what we're doing makes sense. Because it can get very complicated sometimes when it's like, a bunch of different championships, a bunch of different matches, a bunch of different players that are in this segment. So it's trying to make sure that what we're talking about makes sense, but also like little things. Where's everyone standing? What's the blocking? How, if somebody's exiting the frame, how are we doing that? Like it's all those little things that really do make such a difference in those moments of which side of babyface is going to come in from, how I'm going to, how I'm going to interact with the baby face as opposed to heel. It's all those little things that I think really make the difference to those moments. And as we know, it's like any moment that you have on camera is so valuable. So we want to make the most of those every single time. And if I can help make somebody look like a bigger star or get them better experience in those moments, that's something that I love doing.
I love being able to, I think this is the same feeling for you, where you take all those years of experience and then you're able to, like, people are listening to you. It's like, okay, yeah, she knows what she's doing. Right. And like you're able to put it there, which is a great feeling. It is. So I have a very, very important question for you.
Okay.
One, do you remember the Canadian national anthem? And do you remember, I don't know, because I had to sing it in French. And do you remember the French version?
I can, and it's funny because I was just going over this in my head because I was asking myself the same thing. I've not sung the Canadian national anthem or any national anthem in a really long time. So I actually was just up in Canada this past week and just kind of getting back to my roots. And it was in my head, I was like, can I still do the national anthem? And I can. So I'm not going to perform it and recite it, but I can do it. Okay. And with the French.
Really? So wait, did you have to do it? We had to do it. I had to do it twice. So we did it because we had French class every day. So we had to do with everybody in the morning. But then when we had French class, we had to do it in French class. So did you do that too?
I feel like ours would do the, like, start in English, go to French, and then close it in English. So we got to do a little bit of both. But I took French all the way up to grade 12. So I can speak a bit of French. It is rusty as all hell. But the national anthem is still ingrained in my head. So
I feel like a terrible Canadian. Maybe when I go back, it'll just come to me.
It will. It will.
Okay.
And I think it was because I was like up in Nova Scotia. I'm one with Earth. I'm at my mom's house. I was like getting my Canadian on. We were eating poutine, the whole thing. So I think that's when my powers maybe strengthened a little bit more, and I was able to tap into the anthem.
Oh my gosh. Fun fact about poutine. I actually thought my whole entire childhood until I moved to America that poutine was an American dish because it just had that grease and like it had all this stuff. And I just, to me, like grease meant American food. Sure. And it wasn't until I came here. It's like, no, because like my family, we're from the island. So we didn't grow up with poutine. And I'm like, this has to be an American dish. So
that's ours. It's us.
It's us. It's all us.
Yeah.
Now, kudos to you for, having the Canadian card and everything. But even with that, do you find that because you've lived in America for so long, some of your Canadian friends or Canadian family, they kind of like, yeah, you're crossing over a bit more?
I would say so. I think just even in like certain phrasing, never in Canada, living there, my whole life, aside from the last 10 years, would I ever say y'all. So I can say y'all in a sentence now, but if I say it to my mom, it's funny, when I was at my mom's house, it was me, my mom, and my aunt, and I said it, and I was like, that phrase does not fit here. It just does not apply. So yeah, I definitely can feel a little bit more of that happening, especially now I've got an American husband, an American daughter. So yeah, it's sort of hard to avoid. So that's why it is important for me to go back to Canada and also to take my daughter to Canada, because I love Canada. I love being raised in Canada. I wish that I could still hold on to some of what that was. To be able to take my daughter up there and let her start to have some of those memories and those feelings is really important to me.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah, I've had those scenarios more of late where my friends are like, you sound like you're in a TV show. And I'm like,
I don't feel like I ever really had much of a Canadian accent to begin with, but whatever I did have is not there. Every now and then it'll slip out, and my husband's like, wow, you just sounded Canadian. I'll say a phrase or some word or something, and he'll call me out on it, but far and few between.
Yeah, very true. Which brings us to Total Divas. And so, we're aware of you and John's relationship before Total Divas, but then Total Divas came out. And I remember the moment, there was this scene where I think you guys were in Toronto, where I think somebody grabbed your hat and then he took off running after him. Yeah. I was like, wow. I mean, I feel like marriage should happen. Like this is everything. But with your experience with Total Divas, what was that like? And would you do it again?
Yeah, my experience with it, I think, was like, I feel like I look back on it so removed from it, being like, wow, what a cool experience that I was given to do. But I think sort of in that world of being in reality television, on the road, having my boyfriend at the time, who was very resistant to doing it, trying to get him involved doing it, trying to figure out like, what are my storylines on this show? I don't really have much like drama. I'm not wrestling. So I was trying to figure out who I was on the show. And that, I think that was like a little bit of a hurdle for me. And listen, there's an art to doing reality television. We see people that are great at it, and we see people that are not so great at it. And yeah, I mean, I don't think that I was so great at it. I think in another world though, and I think with the experience that I had doing that I could be more open to it now, given, just, what I know about it and who I am as a person now, I think is a little bit different. So yeah, I'm always open to kind of everything. So I would never say never. But yeah, it really was a cool experience. And you see certain shows, like I loved watching Total Bellas. I loved watching that show. There's different reality shows that I am like super, super invested in. And I think it's just being able to be as vulnerable as possible. And I think that was something that I kind of like struggled with a little bit of like, I wanted to put up this guard of not really letting people super in, which is really not a characteristic of me. So it was a little bit uncomfortable for me, I guess.
Yeah, I think like the ability for everybody to see all aspects of you, where like I feel like the pandemic did a lot, where people actually saw themselves for like who they are, because now you're by yourself.
Sure.
Like you can't escape it. And I think with reality TV, it's kind of like you're almost forced to, like, they're taping you all the time. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah,
Like,
they're taping you all the time. You kind of have your guard up of like, oh, is this going to be manipulated in a different way, or I'm going to come across a certain way. Also, like, I think too, like having my relationship on a reality show when we weren't married, we had been together for quite a while, but it was still, it was just a little bit awkward. I think if I was doing it all by myself would be a different story. Trying to make somebody do something that they really don't want to do is not a fun way to do television. Like I felt like guilty trying to get him to do it. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, but we do have to go film some stuff. So that's just like the other side of it. I think if it was just me doing my own thing, that's different. But trying to make somebody else be vulnerable when they don't want to it's not easy to do that.
Yeah, it was very clear that it's like, I am doing this out of love. I don't.
God, for John, 100%. He's a sweet guy. He tried to help me out.
Yeah, that's love through and through. Another thing that happened was in Chicago, for Starcast. You and Saraya actually did like a mini kind of podcast show.
Yeah.
Amazing. It was after dark. It was late, which kind of allowed for a lot of shenanigans to happen. So is that in the works?
Yeah, I think so. For Rhea and I, we've been talking about doing kind of anything together for so long. We've been able to work together for so long, and we've been able to have like big chunks of our careers together. But for us to like actually like me and her do a thing together, so we, the easiest way to do that, of course, was to like, hey, let's do a podcast. And then the idea came up with Starcast. It's really just finding the right time to do it. I think for both of us, we don't want to like half-ass it or start doing it and schedules are busy and we've got other things going on. It's just trying to find like the right way to do that. But it will happen in some capacity or another, whether it's this podcast or some other kind of show, what have you. I mean, I feel like it's all right there. Like you said, it's like the shenanigans, there's no way to contain those shenanigans. So it's just trying to find like the right way for us to really get together and make something that we're both really proud of.
Yeah, I'm hoping sooner than later.
Yeah.
With that being said, I was really happy when Saraya came on to AEW and then also got the title, but then her title run was really, really short-lived. So like, what was, of course you have to be objective because, you're interviewing talent, etc. But it's clear that you guys are friends. So what was the feeling when she lost that title?
Yeah, I mean, I for sure disappointing. I mean, you look at somebody like Saraya and what she brings to AEW, what she brings to that women's division, and I think her kind of finding her footing again as well after, not wrestling for 5+ years. So for her to come back from this injury, thinking she was never going to wrestle again, thinking she was fully retired, boots hung up, to now coming back into this world and trying to figure it all out again. It's been really cool to see her get into her groove. And I think her having that championship belt and being able to have a different run, I would have loved to have seen that. I would have loved to have seen her be able to defend that title more and have some more of those matches and have more of those opportunities. Obviously Shida is fantastic. We have so many great women, but Rhea's my girl. And I think that she just brings a certain cachet to women's wrestling. She really is that woman that she didn't single-handedly, but she was a big part of changing the way that we look at women's wrestling and changing the mold of what female wrestlers are. And I think that we all need to continue to slap a little respect on that woman's name. She's a badass.
Definitely agree to that. And like, that kind of goes back to when you first started, when you debuted in WWE, which was like 2012. and now, you know, the expand, we're in 2023, about to be 2024. How's the landscape as far as, you know, wrestling media changed since you started to now?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, wrestling media has changed a ton. I really wasn't that tapped into wrestling media prior to, like, even when I was doing the show in Toronto, I was figuring out what some of these websites were, who some of these like journalists were. I didn't know what a ton of that stuff was. So
Mm-hmm.
now to be able to see, you know, different names and different people kind of make something of themselves in that space was really cool. I mean, like, I'm a huge Sam Roberts fan. I love what he does. I love
Mm-hmm.
what Peter Rosenberg has done. I love that he's now doing a show with Michelle Beadle, who I know has always been a huge wrestling fan. So I think, you know, somebody like Kaz. I love Kaz so much. There's so many like cool names and like cool people that are
Mm-hmm.
out there talking pro wrestling and sort of changing the way that we look at professional wrestling. I think that's, you know, kind of my big takeaway of it.
Yeah.
There's cool
It
people
doesn't,
talking about wrestling, and I like that.
yeah, it doesn't feel as cookie cutter anymore. Like it
Yeah.
feels like it's become
But, you
very,
know,
very like,
I think that there used to be sort of like, respectfully, a bit of like a nerdy quality of like, oh, you're covering pro wrestling. And it's like, it's not that. Like, these are like cool people with really great opinions and strong voices. And we're all able to now get cameras in front of our faces, and we're able to record stuff in real time, and we're able to do these reaction videos. And I think that stuff just goes such a long way. There's so many like awesome people to even follow on social media, to like, I mean, look at what Pat McAfee's been able to do. Like, the fact that
mm-hmm.
he has the platform he has and his love of pro wrestling, for him to come in, have matches, jump on commentary, but then also still go back and do his other show. Like, it just, we're always talking about the crossover of pro wrestling into other spaces, and the more people we have that are able to do that is really cool.
Yeah, yeah. Even with Pat McAfee, his for some reason his show is on when I'm at the gym. I guess my coach likes to see his stuff. But you see that big luchador mask on
Yeah.
his desk every time, which is like really cool to see, because it's just like, um I guess wrestling's become cool, whereas at one point it was just kind of like, as adult, you said that you like wrestling, it wasn't,
Sure.
it was frowned upon.
Yep. No, wrestling is cool again, and I love that. I love that for us.
Yes, I do. Now another thing I did see on your IG was that, I mean, you mentioned it too, that as a family you guys travel together, and your daughter is there sometimes backstage while you're getting makeup. Has she shown any interest in wrestling at all, or where is she kind of leaning towards?
She has, actually. It's funny because, I mean, she's almost not even 2.5 yet. She's almost there, but she's been to shows. She's figuring it out. And as much as she likes being able to have interactions with, you know, if she sees, like, she loves Ruby Soho, loves her. And she like saw her and was like, oh my God, her like bright hair and this like cool look. Like, I could see she was just like drawn to her relationship with Eddie Kingston, she loves Brian Danielson. She talks about Brian all the time. She like has his action figure, and like when she sees him in real life, she's like, that's Brian. But anyway, so I brought her out a few times, but normally she's backstage, and then she would usually leave before the show started. She's so little, she's got to get out of here and go to bed.
Right.
Had her at a show, and I brought her out, and I actually didn't realize that John was coming out. He was going to do a run-in during this match. So we're out in the crowd, and John comes running past us, and she was like, oh, could not believe it. She kept just being like, Daddy is so fast and Daddy is so strong. So I've like put on a couple of his like more PG matches for her to be able to watch, and she loves it. She goes, Daddy wrestling. It's just so funny watching her little mind kind of figure it out. And like, even during the match, like the crowd's clapping and she's like, oh, applause for everybody. It's really cool. I can't wait to like down the line hear what her first memories are of being backstage. Like, is it hanging with Paul White? Is it, you know, who, I don't know who the people are that are going to stick out in her mind. So it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Speaking of some of those matches, like as an adult, there's matches I can't watch that John has done. And we're just like, yeah, I can't, I will listen to it. But so how do you do that? Like just seeing like, you know, there's a lot of blood happening now that's crossed over to AEW. So how do you manage that?
I don't know, maybe I'm a sicko, but it doesn't really bother me. Like, I think I'm used to seeing it. I think too, as much as I can see the visual of it, I also understand that John is so good at what he does, but not
Mm,
only that, he loves what he does so much. So yeah, I think it's really all of those things for me to be able to like see all those kind of come together, and him loving what he's doing and being so good that I can see past the blood. I see the
okay.
good matches and I can see the story.
Okay. Okay. Maybe I'll try that approach because I
Yeah.
can't. I'm a total punk. Um, but something that you're really good at that I'm also not good at is cooking. So you came out with a cookbook a while ago. So any chance of you coming out with another cookbook?
Perhaps. I mean, yeah, it's something I've been kind of thinking about. I've not really had the time, honestly. Like writing a cookbook is very, very time consuming, and having a toddler and being on the road, free time is not something I have an abundance of. So yeah, eventually I think I would love to get back to that. I've just been like kind of not even cooking all that much. So I need to kind of get back to doing some good meals, and I think fall's a good inspiration for that too. So keep an eye out on my IG as I keep cranking out some more meals.
I mean, I definitely am gonna some of those recipes. I'm like, one day I will try. We'll see. Um,
Good.
One last question before we get out of here. So I know, the aspect of as far as you producing, but let's like say that TK said, look, you can do some bookings, whatever you want. It's Renee's day for a season. Is there any particular matches, and of course, like let's add the storyline, not just a one-off thing. Is there any particular matches that you want to see against people, and also with the caveat, Forbidden Door? So
Okay. I mean, that's that's a hard question to answer in a short amount of time because there are so many different scenarios of different matches that I would love to see, especially if you add in the Forbidden Door aspect. But that being said, it's like God, our roster is just so talented. You can't walk through the hallways without seeing like a legendary face. So I think I don't know. Like honestly, even having like Adam Copeland be a part of AEW, that's something I never thought that we would see. So I would love to see, to be biased, I would love to see Adam Copeland and John. I've never been able to see something like that. So that's something that I would love to be able to see. But in terms of like doing like some booking and some true storytelling, I feel like that's for a whole other podcast. It would take a long time to really get into the nitty gritty about, but there's a lot of dream matches that are still to even happen under the umbrella of AEW. And as we continue to kind of see how pro wrestling changes and shifts, I think that we're all pretty lucky to be able to see the things that we get to see on a weekly basis.
there it is. Well, I thank you so much. Like I said, thank you for wearing Canada on your sleeve, for inspiring this Canadian girl to go forth, and all the things. I'm sure everybody's following you, but just in case they're not, where can everybody follow you?
Hit me up at Renee Paquette on both my Twitter and my Instagram. It's all there. I have a TikTok somewhere, but I don't know the information on that. So I'm around. You can find me.
There it is. Thank you so much. And thank you guys for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet. My name is TK Trinidad. Till next time, guys. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet.